I was a child, I had a fever. My hands felt just like two balloons. Now I've got that feeling once again. I can't explain. You would not understand. This is not how I am. I have become comfortably numb. This is Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter, in the heart of coronavirus territory, but not yet infected. How you doing?
Yeah, you got me thinking on that one. I was trying to listen to you as I was reading something else.
Oh, boy.
So, comfortably numb. Yes, our underground layer, we are protected. We are 6 feet apart. Actually, I think we're 6 feet 6 inches because that's my height.
Boy.
Comfortably numb. Comfortably numb. Give me a second. It's going to come to me.
Yeah.
Jay, I've been, as we're all forced in our hibernation by our elected officials who don't seem to know much limits on what they can or can't do. I know the answer. Stop.
Yes.
Pink Floyd.
Yes. Off air, I told you might get it.
You did, and I hate it when you do that because then I feel extra stupid.
In this crazy,
I got the Beatles wrong, and you. You might. I got the one that I'm still kicking is "The School's Out." That's the one I couldn't believe I didn't get that.
Wow.
And the funny thing was, I heard it like a week later too, and it was like, there's that stuff. So that's what's that? 39 right now.
No.
I got 39. I think I'm still at 16 and 3/4, maybe 16 and 3/4. I'm at. Anyhow, Jay. All right, so starting off the show on a good note. I don't feel so stupid. Maybe one of these days. You know what? One of these days, because you know what a baseball historian I am. Mm-hmm. Maybe I'll give you a baseball question and see if you know the answer to it.
The answer is probably not, unless it's.
Was what, last year?
No, I listened to the Twins a lot when I was young.
Yeah, but they were in Washington when you were young. So, I mean.
Really? Word. The only Washington they were in when I was young was Seattle.
The old Kingdome, one of the ugliest stadiums in the history of the world. We've only got one left, and that's Tampa Bay. But I've been watching stuff, Jay. Mm-hmm. And for some reason the other day I started watching old Saturday Night Live clips on YouTube. Forgetting what a great... Is it still on?
I would guess.
I have no idea. I haven't watched it in... The last time I remember watching it was when what's-her-name looked like Sarah Palin. That was the last time I can remember. I can't think of her name from Mean Girls. I don't remember her name. Doesn't matter. But
Tina Fey.
That's it.
Yeah.
Okay, and she'd get up and look like Sarah Palin. Mm-hmm. Okay, and I have not watched it since.
Yeah.
So that was, 2008? So I don't know pop culture anymore, but there's two things that really stick out. If you got them on YouTube, you've got to look them up. You remember the guys... Norm from Cheers, and they used to be the Bears, the Bulls.
Yeah.
Remember those guys?
Yeah.
I can't believe, the things you could get away with saying on television. This is from 1991.
Right.
Okay. And you could never air what they did today. You could never air it in a million years.
No.
But Chris Farley's sitting there scratching his stomach, and he says to Mike Myers, he goes, "Hey, I'm reading the paper, and it says that San Francisco is picked to win the Super Bowl over our Bears." And they all looked at each other and they said, "Well, you know who's happy about that, don't you?" And they said, "The queers, the queers." And they clung their glasses together. I watched it like 15 times. I couldn't stop. But you got your protected groups now where you can't joke about.
Right.
But I just... Man, I missed it. Just 29 years ago was that skit. Now, the other one, you've got to look up this one where Daryl Hammond plays Jimmy Carter. And the other guy, I always forget his name, plays Fidel Castro. When they met, I don't know what year this was. It was the other guy, Will Ferrell. That was the other guy.
Yeah.
And they sat there, and Daryl Hammond does a very good Jimmy Carter. And they have an interpreter there. And Will Ferrell, he's speaking in trying to speak Spanish or whatever language they speak in Cuba.
Yes,
they go back and forth.
Spanish, yes.
They go back and forth, and Well, what's the guy from? Why do I keep forgetting his name from Old School?
Will Ferrell.
Yeah, Will Ferrell, not Pharrell. Okay, sorry, but he goes. He says. And the lady who's playing like his interpreter goes, I don't remember when you were president of the United States. And so Dale Hammond goes, and he does his Jimmy Carter. Well, it was from 1977 to 19, or whatever. And Farrell goes, and the lady goes, oh, during the Iran-Contra thing, or the hostage thing. And Dale Hammond's like, yeah. And he asked like what else he was known for, and he talked about stagflation.
Yeah.
And Will Ferrell goes, mush, nush, 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 nush. And the lady goes, wow, stagflation? We don't even get that here. It was great. You got to go back and watch it.
That's good.
There was some other like, when Dana Carvey played George Bush or something, they had a debate or something. But, we got some more time of this, of sitting around. I mean, I watched as many baseball games as I could, and I had to, change it up a little bit. So the Bears are going to win the Super Bowl. So great skit. Anyway, Jay, on to business. No more play. Serious business going on here in Minnesota. Now, I've been determined not to talk day and night about this corona with a Lyme virus.
Yes.
But the story is unavoidable on certain levels. And I think that what's being lost in all of this, obviously, is government grabbing power. Now, we talked the other week about every time there's a crisis, the end result is less freedom, more government. Mm-hmm. Whether that was 9/11, whether that was the financial downturn in 2008, whether that was the stock market crash in 1929. Yeah. Even the Civil War, you could argue to a certain extent, although they weren't. No, they weren't permanent.
Right. Like Lincoln gave a lot of that back.
Yeah, like a lot of the things, but he did suspend habeas corpus. There was an income tax, which a lot of people don't know about.
Yep.
But it was all they got rid of it at the end of the war. Mm-hmm. World War I, there was the Red Scare, and there was the Creel Committee, and I would argue, as somebody of German descent, I would argue that Germans were scapegoated even here in this country. Yeah. One interesting thing I read about Joe DiMaggio, do you know that the loyalty of his parents during World War II was they were on some list to be watched? They were Italian. They were on Gillespie DiMaggio, and he was on some watch list. Interesting thing to read about. So we always come out of it. There's always every act has an unintended consequence, no matter how virtuous it may be.
Right.
And I think we're having. I think that the lack of I was called unpatriotic on Twitter the other day for questioning whether governors have the authority that they are exercising. I mean, President Trump has been pretty judicious, in my opinion.
Yes.
He has not usurped governors. He has not pulled out that Defense Act where he can, like FDR did, where he forced businesses to. I mean, he could do any of those things, and he hasn't. He's let the local people closer to the problem make those calls. But in making those calls, we have gone not only off the deep end here but I mean, questioning it has become taboo, even among some of my more even libertarian-leaning friends have been very shocked. I've been very shocked at the responses that I've seen. It's been all over the place.
Yeah.
And what's going on with what mayors are doing, what police chiefs are doing, what is happening during this. I mean, we're gonna have the consequences. Look, this thing's gonna go away at some point, but the consequences of it aren't.
Right.
So where are we right now in the consequences versus the overreaching. We talked about it on the previous episode a little bit.
Right, and these things don't go away, and and I know that there are tons of things that have been put into effect. And any time that you're dealing with a national emergency, I mean, you've got national emergencies still open and on the books from back to the Carter administration. You
do?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so
federally or
yes, federally. Okay. Yep, federally. So anytime you tie something like that to
having Jimmy Carter as president alone is a national emergency.
Well, that's
but
true.
Yeah.
That's true. But I mean, there are things from when Reagan was president, and Clinton and Obama, and the Bushes, and
really, I didn't know.
Yeah,
that.
A lot of that stuff is still on the books, and so
a state of emergency was declared,
yes.
Yet a state of emergency was never revoked or ended, or
right. And some of them are ridiculous. I mean, for a national emergency, and it's like the things that happen in other countries, and so maybe it's like the State Department puts out a warning not to go somewhere, or things like that. But we are entering uncharted territory. I mean, we're looking at, remember how the derivatives caused the 2008 crash in the banks, and we're looking at 1.5 quadrillion in derivatives right now. I mean, this is something people aren't talking about. We haven't even really talked about that because so much of what is in people's purview right now is this virus, but there's this whole other end of things that if we don't pay attention to what the other hand is doing right now, that it's going to bite us really hard on the back end. And so we're going to have to look at that, but it's going to be a whole other national emergency. But we've got that, and we're talking about handing out basic universal income, basically, where every family's getting a check until the end of the crisis. But again, if we don't end the crisis, if we don't end the national emergency at some point, how long will that go on for?
Well, with President Trump there, it won't go on. I think he's itching to end it.
Well,
but
I think so too. He wants people to get back to work.
Here's the difference, though, and I even got into it, but I let President Clinton's former labor secretary have it on Twitter too.
Yeah,
Robert B. Reich.
Yes, all 5'1" of him,
if he's that tall.
Yes,
but Secretary Reich put out something where he accused. I don't know why he accused the Republicans and the president of this when the Senate passed it unanimously, of saying that we were bailing out all of these companies right now. And I'm like, well, the difference between now and 2008, and it boggles my mind that I have to explain this to a former cabinet member, which is, a very powerful position in charge of a lot of people. We are forcing people out of business right now. These aren't banks that have made bad loans or anything like that. And, I was never in favor of the bailout back in 2008. I would have never supported it. I think we missed a chance to we threw good money after bad. Again, it was another one of those things that was well-intentioned. And we're still reverberating that because every time now that we have an economic turn down for any reason, the government is going to come in and partner up with the private sector.
Yes.
I mean, we've been seeing it with General Motors since the 70s. I mean, it's going to happen. Nobody wants to preside over something that isn't perfect economically. But anyhow, when you look at what's happening as far as the state of emergency, I would argue that forcing these businesses to shut down, there is a responsibility to those companies and those workers that you can. Now, I disagree with how they're going about it, but I think there is a way. I think there's a way to do this that doesn't involve how they're doing it, but it is not the same as bailing out a bank. Although I want to know where this $2 trillion is really going, because it's sure as hell not going to the American people.
Well, we'll see. There are, talks about things like small business loans and, sending a check to every family.
Well, that's in the bill in Washington.
Right.
But the thing that worries me about small business loans that become grants are all the strings attached to them. And we've talked about one, which is that they don't fire workers.
Right.
Okay, but trust me, that's not the only string in there. We're going to find out what else is there. And anytime something gets passed, in the wee hours of the morning, it's 900 pages long. Nobody's even thought to read the thing. I know what the House tried to do, some Cliff Notes got pulled out of there. But we're going to have the consequences of this $2 trillion. Jay, let me put $2 trillion in perspective. In 1986, when President Reagan grabbed the budget, remember that? He was trying to make the case for the line item veto, that I either sign this entire thing or I veto this entire thing. I don't know what to do. It was kind of a stunt, but it's very memorable. It was very smart of him to do that.
Yeah.
That budget was $1.2 trillion.
Yeah.
The entire federal budget.
I know.
So we just passed more money. Now, we were in the middle of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Okay. We were,
the arms race.
Yeah.
The Star Wars program.
There was a lot going on at that time.
Right.
And, you think about it, it was pre-welfare reform, and we still had a $1.2 trillion budget. Today, the budget's about $4.5 trillion.
Yeah.
And and here's the crazy thing. To spend this $2 trillion, where are we getting that money? Would it be from the same country that started this virus in the first place? Do they ultimately going to be the bondholders again? Because we don't have it.
Right.
So where's it coming from?
Yeah.
How ironic that to bail out our own economy that we self-destructed, we have to borrow from the people who helped destroy us.
Right.
And China's our number one enemy right now. They're the Soviet Union of this century.
Yep.
And I don't know.
Well, they're not buying our stuff right now either. I mean, the Fed is buying all of it. The Fed, in fact,
now. But remember, this $2 trillion
right.
has to be rolled out. It's going to be in next year's budget, which starts October 1st. Okay, so we're not getting the revenue now. So the Fed is buying it in the short term, but in the long term, until the economy goes back, you're going to have a huge gap there.
I think they're going to print a lot of it. I mean, that's the new monetary policy, where you don't have to worry about all of that, writing bonds to cover the money you print, and you just print it.
But you can. At some point, it loses its value.
Well, I agree with you, but that's the new monetary policy. I mean, that is what.
What do we got?
All the socialists are.
Do we have
trying.
the continental dollar now? I mean, what?
Yeah.
Haven't you looked in history and shown that in the long run this doesn't work?
It doesn't work. And
look at the Weimar Republic.
Zimbabwe. It
Confederate States of America. I mean,
pretty soon we're going to be writing denominations of dollars on socks.
Yeah, but they're not going to be worth. They're not going to be worth used butt way.
But this is what the socialists want to do, because it is going to devalue our dollar.
It benefits
force
the bankers
into a cashless society, and possibly like a world currency. And I think that's their goal ultimately.
Wow.
I mean,
we know the North American Union, the Amero. That was
rumored. Yeah.
I mean, that was proposed.
It was proposed. Yeah.
I think tacitly it was endorsed by the Council on Foreign Relations. Now,
yes.
Let me just say this though. How much of it depends on how fast we bounce back? I mean, how much of it depends on whether this is a V? Okay, I mean, the markets have already gained 10% or almost 20% in the last 3 days. But I always watch people with money.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I also believe they know how to manipulate things. They know when to sell. They know when to buy. They know who's getting the money before anybody else does. Okay. So, I mean, and I know most of us just follow it because of our retirement savings. But how fast do we bounce back? One of my fears is that we bounce back, but we bounce back slowly. That it's not a recession. It's more of a we're in neutral for a year or two,
Right.
because I think it's unlikely. If I'm a restaurant owner, okay, and I don't have customers for 2 months, I'm probably not going to hire everybody back the first day I open. I probably have no inventory. I probably have, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
I got electric
Food's
bills
gonna
to
go
pay.
bad. Yeah.
I've got rent I might be behind on. I'm sure they're working something out. They've got to be.
Right.
Okay, but what are the odds that everybody gets hired back right away and all the customers come back right away?
Right.
Some people are like, yeah, you know what? I'll stay away from the bar for a few weeks till I'm really sure.
Yeah.
Then I'll come back. I mean, I'm just saying, is that not possible?
That's possible.
So is there going to be a return that is and lingers for a while? In the meantime, we've got a huge deficit now. We've got we've devalued, we've created inflation. Inflation is inevitable.
Right.
Okay, when you have so much paper money. And where do you go from there? Because if people aren't, if you have inflation with unemployment, that is a dangerous combo to be walking around with.
Absolutely.
Rarely does that happen naturally.
Right.
Naturally, when people are out of work, the value of a dollar doesn't get inflated.
Right.
Because people aren't spending. So, monetary policy in this country just does not get enough ink. I mean, I wonder if anybody could even explain. Could a person on the street even explain the FDIC? I'm not sure I could.
FDIC?
Yeah, the system of that's all in the family that the Fed controls.
Right.
The fact that people don't know that the Fed is not an arm of our government.
Exactly.
It's
a private institution.
Yeah, and they have total control over our money supply.
They do.
So, I mean, it's scary what they and interest rates at some point have to. How can you have such? The one thing they could do is raise interest rates. However, when you do that during an unemployed, you make it harder. You're going to make it harder in the short run to get it. It's the right policy in the long run, but it's the wrong one. I mean, we're in a.
Well,
are we effed?
You look at Europe, and they've gone into negative. It's.
Well, I think we'll have negative GDP for this. GDP for this quarter for sure, but which I don't know if I've ever seen.
Well, these European banks and the central banks have been going into negative rates of return and stuff, and so it's here.
Is that quantitative uneasing?
Yeah. It's like you have to pay us to take your money.
Yeah, exactly. It's like buying bonds in the Revolutionary War or something. Jeez.
But and don't worry, folks. We are going to get local with
this. Oh,
here,
yeah. I mean, but it's a good discussion because I don't hear this discussion anywhere else.
Right. Exactly. But I mean, you bring up unemployment, and that's a huge thing. And this is what's unique is that when they're talking recession and possibly depression, depending on how bad things go, and usually employment is the last indicator. It lags behind everything else. Not this time. I mean, it's like, virus is here. We're shutting down.
Yeah,
we're shutting down. You guys are laid off.
You're talking about it. You're talking about a natural cyclical.
Right.
First thing that goes down is the market.
Yeah.
Then the employers cut back the overtime, and they stop hiring.
This time it's just we're shutting it all.
Yeah, and then the last thing they do is lay people off.
Yeah.
And then when you're in a recovery, the last thing they do is hire people.
Right.
So that's why I say when you look at the recession of 2008, 2009, I always argue it was 2011-ish before we were really out of it. Because I think so many people define it by unemployment. They don't look at GDP.
Yeah.
They don't look at what the economists look at. They look at, okay, when did I lose my job and when did I get one?
Right.
And to me, it was really, but if you look at American history, especially post-World War II history, it's about every 8-9 years, we have a downturn. You go back to, people forget we had one under President Reagan very early in his first term. Then 8-9 years later, 1991, 92, 93, we had another one. Then 8 years later, around 2000, 2001, 2002, then 8 years later.
And we were overdue. I mean, we were overdue for a correction. And
I think the tax cuts put it off too for a while. I think they were well timed.
Right. And so, I mean, and this is the interesting thing. President Trump, under him, I mean, we've seen the stock market grow to unprecedented levels. We've seen unemployment drop to unprecedented levels. And that's across the board. That's with women. That's with blacks and other minorities. That's not just white males. But yet, seeing these things happen, I mean, I think that gives him ground to say, once we get this thing tackled, once we start to see this virus either have a vaccine or go away naturally because of the cycle of things, I can do it again. I did it once. I can do it again. I took what Obama left us, and I grew that, and I can take this, and I can grow it again. I think that's a great thing for him. But,
I also feel that his opponents have no answer. Anyway, I mean, their answer is socialism, and Trump has to make it all about, I'm standing between this country and socialism.
Right. But here's the thing, and all of these Democratic governors seem to be pushing in this direction, whether it's to hurt our economy so they hurt his reelection prospects or whatever. But I mean, look at what just happened.
There is that thought of, I have that thought for sure.
Yeah. Look what just happened in this state. You look at the top four states. You have New York, you have California, you have Washington, and you have Louisiana are the top four states affected by the coronavirus. Right?
And now New Jersey, largely because of New York.
Right. New Jersey.
You look at their hot spot. It's right in New Brunswick, East Rutherford. The people who are probably commuting to like Staten Island. That's probably why it's happening. So to me, New Jersey and New York are together. Yeah.
You deserve each other.
Well, I liked Chris Christie, but other than that, at the beginning, anyway.
So you look at what happens, and just alone in New York, you've got 300 deaths. Probably more than that now. That was the last thing I saw. That's number one. In number four, Louisiana, you have
Louisiana, LOSE.
Yes,
Louisiana.
1,800 sick, or 1,800 confirmed cases, and that was as of this morning of when we're recording this. And there were, I'm trying to remember the number of deaths off the top of my head. It was over 100. And here we sit in the state of Minnesota, and we have 200. Actually, it's over 300 today.
346 as of today.
346 cases.
But that's deceiving because we got the results of 5,000 tests.
Right.
And only 50, I think, were yeses. The Minnesota Health website, I think, listed 12,000 people tested. So there's like a 96% negative of people. And I don't know if that includes private testing or whatever, but your point, I get what you're getting at.
So far less. I mean, we're dealing with 346 confirmed cases, 12 people in ICU. Maybe that I haven't heard an updated number on that, and 2 people unfortunately have passed away. But yet we have a governor that has put into place a shelter in place. What we were doing seemed to be working, and I think the people of Minnesota have been going by the guidelines of keeping themselves kind of separate from others and, not interacting, not going to the beach in big parties, like down in Florida or anything like that.
Well, our beaches aren't very nice right now. But
wherever people go here this time of year, they're staying out of the fish shack
polar
there.
dips.
Yeah. So we're putting this into place, and I'm confused because I listened to the governor's address on the internet, and as he was giving it, and he was very clear that we're asking you, we're not forcing you to stay home, and when I went back and read through the executive order after it came out, it doesn't say that. It says you are being ordered to stay home, and it can accompany with it a misdemeanor with up to 90 days in jail and up to $1,000 fine. Now, that doesn't sound like asking to me.
Well, that's
he didn't care to say any of that in his address.
That's the governor's way of asking.
Isn't that something? If you're addressing the state and saying, "Here's what I'm proposing," here's what wouldn't you lay it out and help people to understand it?
Well, yes, but I'm more perturbed at what he talked about numbers-wise.
Yes.
He talked about dragging this out. I mean, one of the things he talked about was dragging this out 14 weeks, all the way until August.
Originally, he said like 3-4 months.
Is he setting the stage for a stay-at-home order all summer?
Well, and here's the thing. You can't come out and say that. Nobody's going to abide by that.
But that's why.
So that's why it's 2 weeks.
That's why he's done all this incrementally, because he knows that we didn't have enough sufficient people scared,
right,
that we would support, everybody would put their tail between their legs and not do anything. You had to scare the public enough,
right?
So it was incremental that he's been doing this. But if you look at, you mentioned Democratic governors, if you look at them, once Governor Cuomo acted in New York, now he's facing a different situation, I would argue. I mean, half the cases in the country are in his state.
Yes, they are.
And what you do in New York,
you don't have to do here.
Then 2 hours later, Gavin Newsom is out putting 40 million Californians. 40 million.
Yes.
California has 2,000 cases. Okay. San Francisco is on a total lockdown unless you're homeless.
Right.
Okay. If you're homeless, you can wander around all you want to and pee in the street and all that.
That's true.
It is true.
You're not over-exaggerating.
And with all due respect, the homeless are one of the most vulnerable because they aren't clean. They aren't,
Right.
I mean, it could go through a homeless camp, which is basically every square block in California. But I mean, it could go through that. Like they don't have good medical care. They probably don't have a good diet, good immune system.
Right.
They could be, you talk about most vulnerable people.
Yeah.
They may be at the top of the list other than seniors with, some sort of condition. But I mean, I'm sitting here going, California, really? How are you going to enforce that?
Right.
What are you going to do? I mean, a stay-at-home order for a state of 40 million, and then, boom, every governor just slobbered all over themselves to try to be the next one. The guy in Illinois was the next guy.
Yeah.
And then Michigan acted. That was, and you just knew Walz was going to do it. There's no doubt about it.
He's been talking about it for how long?
He's been setting the stage for it for weeks.
Yes.
And I think he's going to be one of the last to lift it. I think he's going to wait for everybody else to do it first, because he's not a leader. He's not somebody who's going to act boldly. And I think we could. But here's the thing: American people aren't going to put up with that.
Right.
I'm just telling you. They're not going to put up with it. There's no way when it's sunny and 85 out that everybody is going to abide by being locked down. And there's no way everybody's going to sit in their house and argue with their relatives. And I mean, it's like being stuck at Thanksgiving every day for the, I mean, it's just,
But you don't have to. I mean, with this order, you can get up and go exercise and go to the park. Just maintain your social distance.
That's not true. Look at California, where they blocked off parking lots. They've got everything patrolled now.
Yeah.
That's not true. You can't just walk down there.
In this order, it states that you can.
Well, but what does it say
but
specifically?
That can be changed at any time.
Exactly.
Because he also said this is data driven and it can change at any time.
But the data he's using is nonsense.
Well, yes.
I mean, there is no accurate data.
No.
We
don't know what this is going to do.
But okay, and pardon me because I don't have the highest opinion of doctors. Okay, I don't. Love nurses. Married to a beautiful one, but doctors I don't have, and I think we're giving doctors, let's just do whatever the doctors say. Well, wait a minute. This is a new virus, number one. Number two, it's acted differently in
Yes.
different places. And number three, you can't put a one-size-fits-all policy everywhere.
Well, and that's the thing, too. I mean,
Walz said we'd have 74,000 dead.
I know.
Does anybody believe that?
No. I mean, those are global warming numbers right there. Are we all swimming underwater yet? No. But, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, he's been talking about this for a while.
But let me say one more thing,
yes.
too. He also said up to 80% of us are going to get this anyway.
Right.
So if 80% of us are going to get it anyway,
why not just get it over with?
But why not?
No,
why not protect our
Yeah.
most vulnerable?
Yep.
People in our nursing homes and things like that, just like we do any other time.
Mm-hmm.
And everybody else knows the risks. Okay. And then there's the thing about government. One of the government's roles is to minimize risk.
Yes.
Okay. You know, somebody crashes their car, we don't stop driving. There's a risk with it.
Yeah.
Plane crashes, we don't stop flying.
Right.
Okay. There's risks with that. So the idea that we're going to wait until there's everything is done and you know,
Right.
I mean, there is no possibility of that. Zero.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know that, but I mean, you can't say 80% of the people are going to get it, and then say, well, we're going to shut down so you don't get it.
Right. Yeah, I mean, all this really serves to do is separate people. It hurts the economy. What about people that are in abusive relationships and now they're stuck home with somebody that's abusive? You've got people that get suicidal because the family members are losing jobs and they're stuck at home. Schools are canceled.
You know what's going to happen to me? I'm going to become Jack Nicholson.
Boy.
I mean, I'm not going to do that, but I'm afraid to watch The Shining.
Well,
Right, Grady? You killed your family, right, Grady? I mean, cabin fever.
yeah.
I mean, I'll be sitting with Lloyd at the bar. I mean, it's, you know, you can't keep people locked up. And I don't know that this can go on much longer than it is. And and here's the other thing, too. What happens if things start going well, really well?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's possible that in 2, 3, 4 weeks it'll be completely different.
I know. Maybe you and I should commit a crime. If we commit a crime, then we will be set free.
You know, you and I will get prosecuted.
Oh, that's how we won't get set free?
No, you and I have no chance to get set free, but other people do, but not you and me.
Well, and here's the thing, okay? Going back to this executive order, so the address does not match exactly what was laid out.
No, what he laid out was doomsday stuff, and he used that to justify what he's doing.
Well, and that's part of it, you know, and part of it might be fear-based, but part of it, he was pressured into this too. When you have places like the Rochester City Council that I'm sure is getting pressure from the Mayo Clinic, that all of a sudden they're pressuring the governor to put this in place. I mean, you can see that story out on kttc.com. Rochester City Council requests shelter in place from Walz.
Keep in mind, he was their congressman for 10 years, too.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So they got a good relationship.
They have a good relationship.
Well, and we saw what, I don't know how much it got reported what happened in Golden Valley, which I really want to get to the bottom of.
Yes.
Because basically they were looking, and I don't know where this request came from, that the city attorney, and you know the city attorney didn't come up with this, they're directed to do things.
Yes.
They were looking at implementing a citywide home and shelter order.
In Golden Valley, they don't even have a downtown district.
Well, but I mean... their charter doesn't allow them to create a state of emergency.
No.
There's no statutory city that is allowed to create a state of emergency. And let me tell you something. A state of emergency is needed, I think. But and almost every governor here in Minnesota has used it at some point. You remember the Red River floods back in the 90s?
Yep.
I remember because my dad went up there and volunteered with sandbags and stuff. I mean, that was a state of emergency. We've had weather-related states of emergency. But there needs to be a mechanism for that to where things can be acted quickly, whether that's deploying the National Guard, which is legitimately under the governor's purview. But I think when you have a governor and this whatever this executive council is, which I had never heard of before, when they have the power to shut anything down for any length of time that they want to, when they have the power to rewrite unemployment laws, when they have the power to, pick and choose winners and losers basically right now, and that's pretty much what they're doing. What are the unintended consequences of that? And there's literally no opposition to it.
Yeah.
Our legislature reconvened, passed a humongous relief aid bill, basically on a voice vote. And we'll read it afterward and figure out what it's in. I can't really get any details. No hearings, no communication about what it was, no practicing social distancing. Why don't you not convene and set an example?
Yeah.
Okay, but again, it tells me they know more than they're telling us that they're able to do that. And there's almost no questioning of the legality of what's going on here. Forget whether it's necessary or not.
Right.
There's three branches of government. Okay, and one of them is acting, and the other two are on a lawn chair drinking a soda. So, could this happen in any national emergency? There's a breakout of measles over at New Hope Elementary. Are we going to shut down Hennepin County? Why not?
Yeah.
You can't be open, and you can't be open, and you can't be open.
Right.
And I'm going to rewrite unemployment laws to put all of you on the government dole. And I want to say something too that I don't know if I said this in the previous episode because I've kind of floated this idea a little bit, but if you want to give people direct relief right now, okay, there are 2,500 things you can do.
Yes.
The worst one is to probably send them a check. Okay, send them a bunch of money you don't have. That's probably the worst thing you could do. You could, Jay, and if I were the governor, this is what I would do, because I'll just do the executive orders since you can. I'll just do them. But first, I'd implement the BST. No, I'm just kidding. You could suspend sales and gas taxes.
Yeah.
Putting more money in people's pockets right away. Suspend license tab fees. I think we've done that.
Yeah.
And things like that. There's easier ways to put money in people's pockets immediately.
Yeah.
Not waiting for something. Okay. Not government money. But I think government wants, I think the liberals especially want you to see they're giving you a check. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
They're giving it to you.
Exactly. And that's the thing. It's a lot. Those things rarely go away, which is what I was saying earlier, and when you have
never
something,
go away.
When you have something like, when government gets rid of a tax, they're really eager to put that tax back in place, and you're going to see an end to that break from that tax. When you are getting something, they want to kind of keep luring you in.
You know what I love?
Get rid of that.
What I love is when they talk about sunset measures.
Yes.
But when that time comes, they're never ready to sunset. There's always a new list of 100 more that they've been thinking of for years.
Right.
Now they're going to implement
this came up. We weren't thinking about that back
exactly.
then.
We just somebody just brought it to our attention.
Right.
That, something's been deteriorating for 20 years.
Right.
We're going to give this back, but you know what? Since you're paying it anyway, we're just going to continue with that. We'll sunset it when you retire.
So, anyways, it boggles my mind, and thinking about a place like Golden Valley, and this is not conspiracy theory. This is KSTP.
Yeah, it got reported.
Reported on this that somebody they either don't know or won't say who sent an email to the city attorney.
Which I'm sorry, KSTP can request that information. The city cannot deny it.
No.
They know exactly who requested it.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Channel 5, but you're full of it. Yeah. I've done that before. I've requested stuff. I know damn well who sent it and who didn't.
Yes.
So they're just protecting somebody.
Yes, those are public emails, and they are made available upon request.
Look, it's not hard to figure out. It's either the city administrator, manager,
right, or someone on
the council. It's
6
people it could be.
Yep.
One of them.
That's one of them. It cannot be anyone else. But they sent the email to Golden Valley attorney Maria Cisneros and said they're seriously considering putting it in place. Now, it's a moot point because the governor went and did it across the state. But it's interesting to see that a city the size of Golden Valley, that they're looking at putting this in place, and they want to beat everybody else to the punch. But yet you have people traveling back and forth through all over the West Metro, going through Golden Valley. You have St. Louis Park, which is a huge suburb to the south. You have Crystal and New Hope to the north, which you put those together, those are bigger than Golden Valley. But and you've got both of them, coming through.
Plus Robbinsdale and Plymouth to the west.
Yeah,
I mean. Yeah, plus going through to Minneapolis. I mean,
right. So what are you exactly trying to accomplish? You're just hurting your own people.
Yeah, you're trying
your own businesses.
Again, it's the race to try to. Unfortunately, right now the public has bought the fear, and I think that. And I'm not saying you have nothing to be afraid of either. Don't misunderstand me. I'm not trying to make light of it.
Right.
But. I think that until public opinion turns around a little bit and we get some more honest reporting, I think.
Don't hold your breath.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't anyway.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, though. I mean, they put these orders in place, and government uses it as an excuse for more overreach. I know we entitled the last episode, "Here Comes the Overreach." Well, the overreach is here. This is through ABC News. LA mayor says city will shut off water, power to open non-essential businesses. So they've put across California, there's a stay-at-home order, and so
I think LA has actually been doing this longer.
Probably, yeah.
I don't know how their governments are set up out there, but
I mean that's
the second largest city in the country, and just like Mayor De Blasio in New York, they might have different powers than we know of,
and so like our shelter-in-place order here says that you can be charged with a misdemeanor if you're not engaging in approved activities, or you're in a non-essential business, so misdemeanor, up to 90 days in jail, up to $1,000. That'll never happen. Well, here in L.A., well, not here, but, in L.A., here in this article, yes, it is. Those that remain open face misdemeanor penalties, citations, fines, and the possibility of the City Department of Water and Power shutting off utilities service, says
cutting off
Los Angeles
water,
Mayor Eric Garcetti.
Water to people.
Yes. Well, businesses, not in
who
homes.
uses water? I mean,
Right. He says, you know who you are. You need to stop it. This is your chance to step up and shut it down, because if you don't, we will shut you down. That's a pretty bold language.
And by the way, utilities, like electricity, are they government owned technically?
No, they're not. So how can they force that? Well, yeah,
but they're in bed with the major
water. Maybe that
water is probably run by the city.
You pay the city utilities for water,
but not electricity.
Most places, not electricity. How do you shut power down?
Well, the only thing I can think of is that there's one carrier, probably, just like there is here,
right?
And government and business are in bed with each other, and there's a tacit agreement,
right,
to, some smoke-filled room to follow through on those orders.
Right.
I mean, that's the only thing I can think of. Hey, fine, shut down my water and power, then you can't bill me.
Right.
How about that? So.
It amazes me. It's like, you are not essential. You will not work. You will not earn an income. You have no right to earn an income. You are going to sit there and be scared to not pay your mortgages, not pay your employees, not pay your benefits, not pay, whatever other costs come across for you and your family, not pay your lease payments for your business. It's ridiculous.
The whole thing is, I just, Look, I don't know enough about this to know what the right thing is to do. Ultimately here, I realize there's a lot of responsibility on some of these people's shoulders, but that's the job you signed up for. With all due respect, and I think to watch, and I'll bring it back here to Minnesota, to watch almost nobody question the legality of what's going on here.
Yeah.
And nobody, I feel, and I'm going to partially thank the president for this. I feel like the tide's going to turn on this real soon.
Yeah.
That people are just not going to tolerate how they're being treated.
Yeah.
And
That's
I
very
think
possible.
And I also come back to who's going to enforce this.
Yeah.
I mean, I think we're going to have problems with looting. I think we have a story too about a criminal being let out and committing a crime, while these county attorneys, like we mentioned last time, are doing this under our noses, letting people out. Oh, we got the coronavirus. So let me get this straight. We're going to fight the virus by letting out prisoners and caging up me.
Yes. KSL.com. Payrolee released early due to COVID-19. Breaks into house. Threatens woman with knife, police say.
Hope they rearrested him. Great.
Well, I hope so, too. I don't know.
They let him out. He's good behavior for 6 hours, and they let him out.
Yeah. American Fork. Where is that?
Right by American Spoon.
Well,
I don't know.
I don't know.
Wasn't there a movie with a fork in the road? Literally a fork?
Yeah, I'm sure there was.
Probably something you'd laugh at.
Oh, boy. That is kind of my sense of humor. American Fork is in Utah.
Really? Utah?
Yeah.
Of all states.
So if that happens in Utah, you telling me that's not going to happen 40 times over in Chicago?
It would happen 400 times over in Chicago.
Yeah.
But I mean, are local police officers enforcing this? Are they driving around like slave catchers, making sure that, nobody's out of their house after dark? Look what's going on in Italy. I mean,
right.
You're out and about without papers like the old Soviet Union.
Yeah.
You're getting thrown into gulag.
Right.
And that's not an exaggeration.
No.
Sorry, it's not.
Nope. You got to be able to transition to the hospital or wherever you're going.
And I'll say this,
if it's an emergency, but yeah, everything else is shut down.
Yeah, my company actually gave me a notice because we're an essential business.
Yeah.
However, that's defined, and who's defining it. And I have to carry that in my truck for 2 weeks.
My word. Well, get ready to carry it for 4 to 6.
Well, I'll know where I'll carry it. I'll know where I'll stick it if anybody tries to.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. You people who think this is going to be over in 2 weeks.
No, you people are.
Just wait till he says, it's not quite done.
Now 150,000 Minnesotans are
We're
going to
have to extend it for another 2 weeks.
The great thing about Walls is I got to watch him a little bit there, and I thought he was going to fall over from slapping himself on the back so much. I mean, it was just like, I did such a great job. Oh, God, I did a great job. I mean, I'm surprised it was like he was like an owl. He could turn his head all the way around and slap himself on the back.
Right.
So
well, and here's another story. I mean, granted, this guy was in Utah, but you tell me this isn't happening across the country, with prisoners being released, committing crimes because they're out of jail. What happens when you can't defend yourself? Looking at Wake County in North Carolina, the sheriff suspends pistol concealed carry permit application as demand surges. And that's beginning on March 3rd of 2020.
You can tell he cashes a government paycheck because when demand surges...
Yeah.
That's when supply goes with it. But apparently, he doesn't understand that.
Yeah.
That's love. You know what people are going to do? They're going to arm themselves.
They will. They're not. When it comes down
to
it, if somebody's breaking into their home, they don't care.
You know what?
You
can debate semantics later.
If the streets get dangerous, people aren't going to care.
Yeah. I mean, if somebody breaks into my house, believe me, I'm not going to care what's close to me. Mm-hmm. And I'll just leave it at that.
So
whether it's a toaster or whether it's a microwave, I won't leave anything laying around.
Right.
But ultimately though, basically what they're doing is suspending our Second Amendment. We've already suspended our First Amendment,
Yeah.
a right to peaceably assemble, which is
that and the free exercise of religion.
Yeah, because, I mean...
Both have been shut down, and even in the Minnesota Constitution, it provides for that right as well.
Yes, and so yeah, your right to worship with others, and free, which is free.
Your
exercise.
right to worship as conscience dictates.
Yes,
shall not be infringed. It says in the Minnesota Constitution.
That's what I said, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Mr. Know-it-all, Mr. Wordsmith over there. Okay.
No, I'm just repeating to you what's in the Constitution.
Well, yeah, it's kind of like the Second Amendment shall not be infringed, and somehow that means registering, and I mean, what can you say? I mean, funny thing is that even in the Civil War, the war started with people grabbing muskets and old smoothbores out of their sheds. And I guarantee you those weren't registered with any.
No, they weren't.
Now we say this too, and I've gone back and done a lot of things like this. When Oswald shot Kennedy, did the media go, "Hey, where do you get that rifle? Who sold it to them? Was that registered with the state of Texas?" That's what they do today.
Right.
Why did they not do that then?
Well,
why didn't we blame the gun?
Different time.
But you go back, right, different time, but assassinations were happening everywhere back then.
Absolutely. It was a dangerous time.
From King to RFK to the Charles Manson lady who shot at Gerald Ford to George Wallace. Another one. I mean, there was no obsession on where their weapon came from, or there's just a perceived risk out there, and I'm not condoning it or anything, but what changed the tide to? I know I'm getting off subject, but I've always been baffled by how if a gun is involved in a crime, we focus on the gun and we forget everything else.
Because it's not about the crime, Andrew.
Yeah, it is.
Back then, it was about the crime. Now it's about the gun, because the gun is what keeps us free. And the goal is no longer the crime. The goal is to create a subservient public.
If I bashed if I bashed through somebody's door and hit 4 people over the head with baseball bats, nobody bans Louisville Slugger.
No.
Okay, nobody would even.
I mean, England might, but
well,
they're
France
busy banning
maybe.
Knives over there. Yeah.
Boris won't do that,
right.
But I mean, France might. But I mean, but if it's a gun, then there's the focus is all on the gun,
right?
So I just
that's what keeps us free.
Things you think about on this program. We make you think. Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, the other local impacts that this order is going to have far-reaching impacts, and we talked about some of those with suicide and depression and things like that, and that's a very serious issue.
There's also prosecutors who announced that they're not going to prosecute certain crimes during this time, which of course is a green light for anarchy and doing whatever you want. Somehow enforcing the law has become taboo. We've done shows on that. I don't get it.
Unemployment is going to be huge. So if I can ask you, what are these restaurants going to do? And these breweries and these places that maybe do a little bit of takeout business?
Well, they can only do that for so long with their inventory and all of that.
Right.
I mean,
they're going to lose a lot of inventory. It's going to spoil.
Well, or it's gone after a couple of weeks. And are you going to bring in a whole truckload of?
You probably adjust. Right now, thank goodness, all the supply lines seem to still be open. Truckers are driving things across the country.
They're working as many hours as humanly possible.
Yes.
Remember, there's federal regulations on that. How long? My dad was a trucker, and how long they can work.
Yeah.
I think they're doing as much as possible. But I think, are they all going to come back? Yeah, at some point. Maybe under new ownership, maybe under different circumstances. Maybe they come back. My fear is that they come back very slowly. That's my fear.
Yeah.
I think landlords and people are understanding and working something out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, look, what are you going to do? Evict everybody who isn't? Well, they don't have any revenue, and it's not their fault.
Right.
So I think, but like I said, my fear is a slow recovery. My fear is that there's enough fear out there that people don't quite go and spend or do.
Yeah.
I think people are going to want to be outside. I think people are, and I don't know if they're going to want to be playing bingo at the. I mean, look, I don't know.
Yeah.
I think the unknown is part of. I think here's another thing. I think if we knew an end date right now, if we knew on May 10th, we're going to just open everything up. Period.
Yep.
We're just doing it. We're going to fight it until then, and do everything we can. But on that date, look, we're opening. We can't do this any longer. I think 99% of businesses would survive if that happened. Because here's the bottom line. If you don't have a business, you don't have a job.
Right.
So the business has to come before the job.
Yep.
So, but I think the fact that, I might extend it 2 more weeks.
Might?
Well, I'm playing semantics here. We'll have to see what the data says.
Yeah.
That is where we really have a problem.
Right.
I mean, if I knew that I was unemployed for 6 weeks, I could figure that out.
Right. Well,
could be July or it could be whatever.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that.
Well, let's take this example. Let's get our listeners ahead of the curve. In this executive order, they just extended the deadline for reopening restaurants out to May 4th.
May 1st. It's schools
May 1st
4th.
and schools May 4th, sorry.
Yep.
Those were originally supposed to be much shorter. The governor snapped his fingers, and the date for those moved. So the date for this can move super easy. And if you think that they're not already looking at that, why would they set the reopen date for restaurants out at May 1st and schools May 4th if they expect us to be out in public in 2 weeks, if that's safe?
Well, because we're not going to be.
Right, exactly.
They're setting us up to what they're going to do
in about a week and a half, we're going to start hearing about extending that deadline.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Absolutely no doubt whatsoever. I mean, I don't know why we're even bothering. I mean, I just think the governor he's going to start talking and tweeting and going on this show and
not this show.
No, but I mean this show or that.
He's welcome to come on this show.
Sure, he's welcome
if he wants to explain it.
Yeah, I mean, I would welcome the governor, but
yes.
To me, I don't see how. Of course, he's under self-quarantine right now,
right,
for like 9 more days. I don't. It doesn't make any sense either to push that out so far, and to do this on a week or 2 basis.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple things at play. One is the president's and Vice President Pence's group that's doing everything in 15-day intervals, and they haven't even committed to extending something. I think they're going to.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be less though. I think they're going to encourage the same behaviors, but I think it's going to be not as restrictive. Their recommendations, and I think the president has set Easter as a date, which coincides with where Walz put that date for that shelter order.
Right.
So I think he may be sitting there waiting for action above him to justify a move or this move or the president's being irresponsible or trying to make him the villain.
And during that press conference, I mean, he didn't mention he was blaming Trump, but he kind of did blame Trump about the testing.
I thought he took some cheap shots. I don't think. What, does the president have tests in his drawer of his office? I mean, it's a new virus.
He didn't send out the faulty tests that were having a 30% faulty response rate.
But the whining is just, oh, God, give me a break. And again, I mean, there's not enough tests for it. Look, if everybody got measles, there aren't enough tests for everybody. Okay? There aren't.
Right.
If we produced 1 million tests a day, it would take a year to test everybody.
Yes.
And testing is only good if you test everybody at the same time, the same day, and the same minute.
Right.
Because if I test negative 2 weeks ago, it doesn't mean I can't get it 2 weeks later. So what's the point of testing everyone?
Right.
Look, all you can do is protect your most vulnerable, whether that's kids, whether that's older folks. If you're sick, stay home. Look, I'm going to tell a quick story here. I know we're way over on time.
We're actually not.
Oh, we aren't?
Over.
Okay.
No.
Well, the N1H1, H1N1, I'm sorry, when I this is just, I'm going to make this short.
Yeah.
A friend of mine babysat his niece who got caught a sickness. Nobody knew it was the N1H.
Right.
She got tested.
Yeah.
And had it. Then all of a sudden he started feeling like crap.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had worked with him for a week, so all of a sudden I started feeling like crap. I felt really bad, and I have a great immune system. I don't get sick too often, and if I do, I'm over it very, very fast. 36-hour bug. That's the longest I remember sick. I felt so bad. I could barely put clothes on because I was sweating so much. And it was the fall. It was like October-ish. And I went in. I'm trying to think of what city I was in. I was traveling for a living then. So this was 2009-ish, 8-ish. I don't remember the year exactly, 10, something like that. They had tests where I was at. They wouldn't test me. They said, no, we have to keep the tests for the most vulnerable people. Go home for the next 3 days, drink some orange juice. Watch Dukes of Hazzard reruns.
Yeah.
And there's nothing else. It'll go away. There's nothing else we can do. They had the tests and wouldn't give me one.
Wow.
So, but my point is that I was sick, went in, they wouldn't test me.
Yeah.
I'm still here 11 years later. Okay? Same thing here.
Yes.
People may get a touch of it. They might get a little bit of it. They might get very sick. They might not get sick at all. Okay? But who has to be protected? Most vulnerable have to be protected. And the rest of us, there's just going to be some risk with it.
Yeah.
But I think our healthcare workers need to be protected too.
Absolutely.
But beyond that, I mean, short of putting everybody in their own cage.
Yes.
Okay? There's nothing else that's going. These viruses, they come. The Spanish flu killed how many people? And eventually it just went away.
Well, I mean, not entirely. I mean, the strains of the flu we get today are
remnants
are strains of the Spanish flu.
But again, who dies from it? People who have bad lungs, people who have they get pneumonia.
Yep.
Okay, it's not the 27-year-old.
It's not
who gets a touch of it and gets over it.
It's not people who have an immune system like a bull, like me.
Yeah, bull.
Healthy as a bull. That's it.
I thought it was healthy as a horse.
Is that what it is? I don't know.
You don't know your
Whatever
sayings.
It is.
You don't know your sayings.
Yeah.
I thought in your day they said all those sayings.
My day.
Penny saved is a penny earned. I thought you came up with. You were around when that.
I'm alive now. Today is my day. Yeah. I haven't gone anywhere.
But back in your heyday, I'm talking about.
My heyday.
Back in the Hoover days.
I never had a heyday. Somehow I missed that.
Yeah.
I went straight from being a kid into
middle life crisis or whatever. Midlife crisis. Yeah. Anyhow, look, just to wrap this up.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be following this stuff and update this stuff. And when you're at home, watch old Saturday Night Lives. Okay, watch some of those. Watch some more. I mean, baseball is supposed to start tomorrow.
Yeah.
Okay, and it's not starting, and
No.
I'm already going through withdrawal because I didn't get to go to spring training like I was supposed to. And but watch those old games. Get on there, 87 World Series. Go to MLB Classics or Twins Classics and 91 as well.
They were good World Series.
Yeah, and
both of them.
Go back to MLB Classics. That's what I'm watching a lot of right now. And Saturday Night Live.
Well,
Stagflation. We don't even get that here.
That's a good joke.
The Bears.
So.
Hans and Franz, are you to pump you up? Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
God, that was great. You know what? I got to say something else, too.
Yes.
If you want to watch the news, remember, because one thing I didn't know is Chevy Chase started that.
Yeah.
That was his idea.
Right.
He pitched that to, what's his name? Lorne Michaels.
Yes.
And but when I go back and watch them and all the people who've done it, I still think Dennis Miller was my favorite.
Probably.
I still think he was the because he couldn't keep a straight face, first off, which is funny.
Yeah.
And it was just I thought he delivered it the best, despite the bad haircut he had back then. I mean, it was good. I don't think it's been maybe Norm Macdonald as a number 2, but I don't think it's I don't think anybody did it as well as Dennis.
Probably not.
So watch the news too.
Yes.
Although I'll give props to Chevy Chase since it was his idea.
Yes, absolutely. And he's always good.
He was good at it, no doubt about it. And could anybody play Gerald Ford better without trying to look like him? Stumbling around and fumbling around. I mean, I never got it when I get it now.
Yeah.
But I never. There was one clip. I got to say this quick, where Dan Aykroyd's playing Jimmy Carter. It's a Ford Carter debate.
Yeah.
Okay, and. The lady from Kate and Alley was asking all these questions, and all of a sudden, Chevy Chase stood there, just dead silent for like 10 seconds. Yeah. I mean, the most uncomfortable, like you're on a bad date. Okay, and he looks up and he goes, "Okay, it was my understanding there would be no math." It was good. All right, Jay, close it out like you always do.
All right, well. Interesting times bring about interesting circumstances, and here we are, starting tomorrow, and by the time you hear this, it'll be in place. You're not going anywhere. Maybe the grocery store, maybe to pick up some medicine, but you're going to have some time on your hands. And, I'm sure you love your family, but...
not that much.
There's going to be a lot of together time. So what do you say?
You're not going anywhere? Who said that? The Macho Man. You're going. Remember Spider-Man?
You're going nowhere.
You freak show. You're going nowhere. 3 minutes of playtime. All right, Jay.
You're going to have a lot of time on your hands. A lot of people are going to take this as vacation time, and that includes a lot of people that are going to be running for local offices this fall. So how can you get ahead of the game? Think about it right now. Take some time and just reflect. And, if it hits you, I'm kind of tired of what's going on around here. And I'm tired of my local politicians complying with everything that comes down the pike. And I'm tired of the higher taxes, and I'm tired of this, I'm tired of that. You know what? Maybe it's time you think about running for something. And since we're all going to have a lot more time on our hands, get a hold of us. COMMSolutionsMN@gmail.com. That's COMMSolutionsMN@gmail.com.
Lord knows you've got time on your hands.
No, I don't, unfortunately. I'm one of those rare few that I'm going to be out in the hustle and bustle and trying to keep things
singing
going.
On the sidewalk.
Yeah. I won't be singing that song from Styx, that's for sure. Too much time on my hands.
Yeah, and by the way, does Styx even know that they misspelled their name?
Yeah, I don't think that's the Styx that they were going after.
By the way, there's a tweet out there saying that the mayor of Los Angeles is asking LA residents to report anyone they see out on the street and to personally confront those people that are not self-quarantined.
Are you serious?
Yes.
Yeah, we need to take a screenshot of that and put that up somewhere.
Breaking news right now. Yeah.
Oh my word! See what I mean? And if you think this isn't coming here, I mean, we are an early adopter of this whole stay home thing. So while you're staying at home, why don't you make a decision to make a change in your community? This is a brand new chance for you to make not New Year's resolution, but a stay-at-home resolution that you're going to make a difference in your community, and you're going to make your community a better place as soon as they lift the gates and you're able to get out there. So it's a perfect time to plan. That's why I said to get a hold of us. COMMSolutionsMN@gmail.com. And we can help you put together a plan to become the next city council member, next county commissioner, next school board member, right where you live. And we've done it before, and we're going to do it again. Let us do it for you. All right. That said, we are going to roll on out of here, but we're going to keep bringing this podcast one way or another. You are going to get it from us every week, stay-at-home order or not. The world of technology is wonderful. All right. So, until then, we love you, Minnesota. Now it's your turn to get to work. get too caught up